Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies on Neko Television, where we keep you up to date your morning program. So do well to get a cup of tea, coffee, whatever is good for you, so we can take you down through some of the stories that are actually appearing on the front page of the papers. I am Tada Elisha Dasha. You can join us through Facebook, YouTube, drop your comment and your view on any of the story we will be looking this morning. And of course, I will be doing the program with Rachel Tansy. Good morning.
Morning,
Rachel. How you
Tere.
doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm great, and I'm so happy because today is our day.
Yes.
And you asked me, what do I mean by today is our day? I mean, today is a World Blood Donor Day. And they are celebrating 20 years. I mean, the first World Blood Donor was in 2004. And they're celebrating 20 years, as well as appreciating, blood donors.
Yeah.
And when we go through, I think one of the first people we'll be looking at, the Guardian, will tell us through some of the need for donating blood. And a number of people are very, very afraid to donate their blood. It looks more like when you give a pile of blood, you are mostly giving like the entire blood, but that is not it. I mean, donating blood has its own advantages because you get to give your body to circulate more blood, and then there are a number of people out there that are really in need of blood. I mean, I think according to history or according to some of the research that have been done, I mean, if you look at the number of people that are in need of blood, Richard, you weep for them. So I think I'm just going to use this platform to let people know that there's nothing bad in donating. As far as you go, they check your blood count and you have the needed number that's needed. You should please save a life out there and actually donate your blood. But it's really, really it's another time of that year where we get to appreciate, and I hope that a number of people will see the need to donate. And then as well as let's put our heads together to help people who are struggling, especially when you look at those who are suffering with sickle cell, and you really cannot help but pity them because they are always in need of fresh blood most times. And then it sounds more like you're talking about vampires or something, but then that is just the way, the reality of time. So if you are healthy, I do not see a reason why you should hold back. Go out there to one of those health. I mean, they have centers that have been certified that you can go there, especially in hospitals, and then you get to, I mean, just a pile, nothing more than that. And then, I mean, you donate it, I think, in a year just 4 times.
That's the
so
most,
I think it's very important that if you are healthy, you should please go out there and donate.
And anytime I get the chance to donate my blood, there's this sense of, you know what, I get to save a life. It doesn't matter. That one life that you get to save is important. That will come, and then your blood save that person's life is important. So I just hope we get that mindset right, because they won't take blood that you don't have.
True.
Yes, just as you mentioned, they will do a test. If your blood count is surplus, that they will be able to get a pile from you, and you will still have enough for yourself. Then that's the only way they will proceed. So it's not a taking from you what you don't have, is what you do have. So let's take away that fear. Let's go out there and be a part of a change. Let's just see that you're saving a life. That's how you should see it in the first place, because your blood will eventually save a life. So let's go out there and do it. And we can never overemphasize on the importance of it. And maybe, Sele, you and I will find time to talk more about it, even not when it is a day of its celebration, just on any random day. Let's just remind someone that, you know what, you can go out there and do it. And once they get it from you, you're not coming back tomorrow, next week. You still have a period of at least like 3 months.
Yes, 3 to 4 months.
Exactly. For you to be able to regain back and then be able to give again. And when you go and when you've given so much, if your diet is not on point, you'll not be able to give again, because we know that we need certain foods for our blood to regenerate, recycle, grow, and all of that. So you have to also go and eat well if you want to take this seriously. So, I mean, let's do the needful, and then let's talk more about it because it's important.
Of course, Rachel. Well, we hope that everybody will do same. Now, let's just go through some of our papers and see what we have for you. And we are starting with the Guardian newspaper, and of course, starting with the World Blood Donor Day, where we have risky black market booms as many shun voluntary donations. And we have some infograph here where we're seeing that someone needs blood every 2 seconds. Now we're seeing that it's very, very important. One donation can potentially save up to 3 lives. And then only about 25% of the country's blood needs are collected. So that is to say, we still have about 75% of people in need of blood are yet. The blood is not going round. So we hope that we can be part of that change. And here, of course, we have 1 pint of blood is taken during a regular blood donation. Hospitals rely heavily on family replacement blood donation due to the poor culture of voluntary blood donation. Emotional and financial distress taking a toll on blood donors. And here we have Nigeria has one of the lowest rate of voluntary non-remunerated blood donation in Africa, and about 90% of blood donations are sourced from paid donors. So we hope that we can actually help to save the life and not wait. You are saving a life, you are not being paid. That is the joy that you are actually adding to humanity. So I hope we'll do that. Still on the Guardian newspaper here on health as well, talking about cholera. Nigeria record 30 dead, 1,206 cases. And we saw that it started from Lagos. 10 other states are involved, and now we're seeing the numbers keep increasing. We hope that we can actually sanitize one another, raise the awareness on how we need to keep the environment and what we eat clean. Still on the Guardian newspaper, Nigerians 289 delegates, largest at ILO conference in Geneva. Detail found on page 7. Police ban Turban in Kano over emirship tussle. And we have expensive away games, poverty, profit, performance, noble demand for local league. Cost of ram soar as Muslim faithfuls prepare for Sada celebration. More detail found on page 8. Clark CIEN re-echo restructuring calls after Democracy Day celebration. Labour to demand minimum wage arrears as governors, employers meet Tinubu. Pastor backs life imprisonment for sexual assault in Ekiti State. That can be found on page 8. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, Supreme Court reserves judgment on local government autonomy for June 27. On Hajj 2024, Arafat sermon to be translated into 50 languages. World Bank says monetary policy tightening can't stem inflation. You can find details on page 21, and I hope that the Central Bank of Nigeria looks into this report. Gusau assures Nigerians of 2026 World Cup qualification. The big story, your comment on troops wrong defense headquarters tells Zamfara governors. Says we lost 9 personnel in 1 month. Soldiers neutralize terrorist kingpin. Buhari Yadi, 232 orders. You can start with the details on the front page. On emirship tussle, FHC affirms jurisdiction to hear Bayera's suit. Senate passes 25 of 447 bills, 115 resolutions in 1 year. Restructuring remains way out for Nigeria. Statement from Clark. Oil sector mafia fighting us over refinery. Statement from Dangote. Onondo Guba, INEC publishes final list of candidates. And at the downside of the paper, PIA implementation. CJN carry tax on cases adjudication. You can find details on page 9, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, motorcycle import rises to 205% to 73.59 billion naira, data found on page 7. And on politics, Sanusi, how I want to be remembered as Emir of Kano. And on the state of the nation, there is hunger, new anthem not priority, coming from Oyo State Governor Makinde, data found on page 13. And on local government autonomy, Supreme Court reserves judgment on federal government suit against 36 governors. And on hardship, labor kicks as 20 states deny workers' wage award. Says it's height of insensitivity. 15 states comply with Tinubu split, 6 pay briefly and stopped. Workers get wage rise palliative in Lagos, Edo, Enugu, Oshu, and others. And then Rivers, Akwa Ibom wait for federal government official announcement. Delta set up committee. Detail of all that can be found on page 5. Soul Makers Ministry marks Heart Day June 16. You can find that on page 14. And on minimum wage, we will pay what we can afford, coming from Tinubu. Promises to send executive bill to the National Assembly. Says fall at Eagle Square is idle bill for democracy. Idle bill for democracy. You can find detail of that on page 9. Senate passed 25 legislation, 115 resolution in 1 year, coming from the Senate leader. NCDC alert on cholera outbreak. You can find that on page 6. On sport, NFF moves to savage Super Eagles World Cup chance to appoint a boss for Finidi. Detail found on page 30. We have the picture story at the Democracy Day dinner. We see the fine, beautiful, big cake that was actually used to celebrate the day. We've seen the president, his wife, the vice, his wife, and other ministers as well that were present during the dinner. And that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Labour will demand minimum wage arrears coming from NLC and TUC. Want federal government to consult workers before submitting figure to National Assembly. Police ban Dubar activities during Eid el-Kabir in Kano. Court affirms jurisdiction to hear bearers' rights suit. You can find details on page 3. Supreme Court reserves judgment on federal government suits seeking autonomy for local governments. LG autonomy, federal government pointing accusing fingers at state government. A statement from Makinde. Mandate council chairman to fix 30-kilometer roads each to invest 15 billion naira yearly to reduce school infrastructure deficit. Tinubu replaces Ben Akabuze with Taminu Yakubu as DG Budget Office. Nigeria's inflation rate to hit 34.37%, says CAPE Economic Research. Details can be found on page 6. 400-level Delsu student finds kidnapped to extort 50 million naira. What Bitcoin from that? You can find details on page 26. Troops arrest suspected killers of 5 soldiers in Aba. Implement 2014 confab report. Nan Clark tells Tinubu wants Igbo treated better. Olubadan designate inspects new palace. Details can be found on page 2, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
All right, on this day newspaper, Kiare oil theft, pipeline vandalism, undermining the gains of PIA. Advocate creation of special court to try offenders. NNPC plan launch of 3 mini LNG facility. More detail found in the paper. Divestment, NNPC withdraws case halting ExxonMobil $1.3 billion asset sale to separate. Detail found on page 11. And coming from Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, Lagos GDP up 50% in 5 years under my watch. And also we're seeing here Tinubu Oboruwere congratulates Okonjo-Iweala at 70. President said the World Trade Organization DG, a remarkable leader, worthy ambassador of Nigeria. Facilitate Akinkule Ojora at 92. More detail of this both celebrations can be found on page 5. World Bank approves the $2.25 billion for Nigeria to stabilize the economy, with a rider to raise non-oil revenues, support vulnerable groups, urge the federal government to sustain current reform momentum, expand protection to poor. Says CBN increasing interest rate appropriate to curb inflation. Edu declares funding will help implement macro fiscal social protection policy reforms. Both stories can be found on page 5. Democracy Day dialogue organized by Goodluck Jonathan Foundation. We can see the president as well as the governor of Edo State rather, we have Peter Obi and many others that were present during that dialogue. You can do well to get the paper, read more detail of the stories that are of interest to you.
On leadership newspaper, Wike Mr. Project making his mark in the nation's capital. On local government autonomy, Supreme Court reserves judgment. The big story amid failed regulation, British curriculum dominates private schools. Proprietors ignoring federal government guidelines, creating own curriculum. Teachers expert demand stricter monitoring. Education Ministry keeps mum. You can find details on page 7. On minimum wage, we will pay what we can afford. A statement from President Tinubu. Details can be found on page 7. Military to Lawal, support us to liberate Zamfara. And that's all the news on leadership newspaper.
I think the government needs to come in here if we're saying that the British curriculum is what is dominating most private schools. And I know that that is the case presently. And a number of us have actually been victims of this, to the point that when you get to, especially because we see it, it dominates mostly the primary school from your kindergarten up to your primary school.
Yeah.
And so at that point in time, you don't get the needed exposure to the history of your country. You don't get exposed to so many things that are peculiar to us here. And so when you are meant to write a common entrance to secondary school, Richard, it's a war. Why? Because you have no idea of, especially when it comes to mathematics and English, you can actually find your way around it because your English, your writing and spoken English is well taken care of. But when it comes to maths and other things, zero. Why? Because you're not exposed to it. And so I think the government needs to do something about coming in and making sure that, you know what, Nigerian curriculum is imposed. No wonder we have no idea. Rachel, you can ask any word in most of these schools, especially that, you know, have taken in the British and the American curriculum. They can tell you the history of the first president of the United States of America to the present one, but they have no history of what happened during the Civil War. They have no history of what even happened when the military changed to the civil government and all of that. Why? Because this is not being enforced in our own curriculum. So I'm hoping that it's not just something that will be on the paper and then nothing is being done. There should be a follow-up. That's why we have the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
You go around, you check. I mean, there was a time they do that. They even check the teacher's lesson note to be sure you are up to date, to be sure you are teaching the writing, the curriculum, and all of that. So I'm hoping that it's not just something that will be on our paper, but let's see a follow-up coming from the Ministry of Education. If they were saying there was no work then and no one that they're not talking, now there is work for them to do. They should go around and check and be sure that this is what these students are being taught, so that they'll be able to face the wider nation. You don't go and face mathematics and you'll be wondering what's this on your paper because you've not been taught earlier on all of that. So I'm hoping to see the government doing that.
I mean, Stella, if not because you brought it up, I was going to move past this story, not because of anything, because I find it very irritating and unacceptable. The question is, how are they ignoring your guidelines? It's because you permit it. It's because you allow it. Because it's how dare they ignore your guideline. You're in Nigeria and you say, this is our policy, this is our guideline. And then a school violated. What are you supposed to do? You sanction them. You sanction them until you shut the school up. It's either they adhere or they do not run. It's these two things. It's either they adhere or they do not run. What are the penalties for ignoring these guidelines? Why are you leaving it? I keep saying it. There are things. Why are you leaving it like if they want to or they don't want to? This is the problem we have in this country. You come and you say, for education, this is it, this is it, this is that, and schools are supposed to adhere, are supposed to follow and do it. You don't leave it to them as if they want to. You go for evaluation every month. You check this teacher's lesson plan. what is their lesson plan, what is their curriculum. You go, what is the Ministry of Education doing at the federal government level and at the state government? Are you just sitting down in your offices, or are you going around to make sure that these regulations and these guidelines are being followed? It's because you allow them to ignore the guidelines. It's because you allow them. When you go to a school, you find them. You find them for disregarding, for not adhering to your curriculum, to your regulation regarding education in your country. You find them is a warning. You give them the second warning with another. The third one, you close them up. If they are not ready to review their guideline, they don't have a business running a school in Nigeria, because this is our curriculum, this is our guideline, this is what is expected of you to do, and you must do it. Who are you? Are you above the federal government of Nigeria? But this shows us that they are above. So when we talk about our senators, when we talk about our leaders being above the rule, when you look at it, when you bring it down, we allow certain people to be above the law in this country. Why are they above the law? And you wonder, is it corruption, or are we just timid or stupid? Are these schools intimidating the Ministry of Education? How are they intimidating them? Why are you allowing them to intimidate you? That you are telling me that they are ignoring. How dare the proprietors ignore it? Are they bigger than you? They are not, regardless of how big their school is. They are not. You sanction them, you fine them until they follow what you want them to do, or they have no business running a school in this country. They should take their school to the British environment and let them run the British curriculum. Take your school to the United States of America and run American curriculum. But if you're in Nigeria, what is our curriculum? That is what you will do. If you want your students to school abroad, which is accepted, you run extra programs that allow them to be able to have access to this. For students who want to school in the UK, who wants to school in Asia, who wants to school, you take them through different kind of tests, be it the SAT, be it the IELTS, be it at whatsoever level they want to do it, or the TOEFL, that is for English and all of that. Let them take this. Train them on the side. Let that be extracurricular for parents or what students that are going to school. But the bottom line is that you are going to do your WASCI, you're going to do your NAPTEP, you're going to do everything that is regarding West Africa, because in the end, majority, regard how many people, in the end, I keep saying it, the majority of us are still schooling in Nigeria. And what is our curriculum and all of that? No, I believe that you allow it. You allow it, because as an educationist, I find it's very offensive. You can't, we can't just be throwing away our own education. Just as you said, I I knew Benjamin Franklin and George Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln before every other leader in Nigeria. Why? Because I did the ACE, for example, and I know American history more than Nigerian history at some point. Is the truth. But then here I am as an adult, I'm like, okay, why am I not knowing? Why didn't I know? Why wasn't exactly now? Why don't I know? Why are we not having it in our school curriculum? Because I am Nigerian, I need to know my heritage and everything. And students are missing out. In the end, no matter how many of us Japan, majority of us will still remain in this Nigeria, no matter what. There's no magic. We won't wake up one day and 150 million Nigerians are not in Nigeria, and then only half of it. We will never wake up to that day, except for something tremendous that I can't even imagine, but we will never wake up to that day. So what are we trying to say or do? Honestly, the ministry, everybody needs to step up and do their work when it comes to education in this country, because whether we like it or not, it's going to be the bedrock of our civilization. Because as far as I'm concerned, we are not civilized. It's going to be the bedrock of our technological advancement. We are still nowhere. It's going to be the bedrock of us putting ourselves on the map when it comes to global change and movement. And if we are not ready to do anything about it, we are going to remain where we are until we take the bull by the horn and do the needful regarding education in Nigeria.
Of course, Richard, and it's very unacceptable. We see that the education ministry is even keeping mum about it. It's not saying anything. So that is to say that, I mean, they are okay with it. And just like we said, it's unacceptable that we're in Nigeria and yet we are studying a different curriculum whatsoever. So we hope to see a change coming up regarding that. Well, let's take the next paper before we go on a break. and that is the Punch newspaper, where we see federal government eyes fresh $500 million World Bank loan for rural roads. You can find that on page 34. Local government funds, Supreme Court reserved judgment as states battled Attorney General of the Federation. And NPC withdraws suit against ExxonMobil separate $1.28 billion deal. 45 billion naira has been spent on Elizabeth Varsity, says Adewoju. You can find that on page 16. Dangote Refinery plans 5.3 billion liters fuel storage with 600 million liters more storage capacity. Our plants will become strategic reserves coming from Dangote. Buyers in the last meeting rush for Salah Rams lament exorbitant costs. You can see them over there. More detail found in the paper. Unremitted gas loyalty flare penalty hit $1.4 billion coming from the NEITI. 4 die by hanging for robbery and murder in Ekiti State. 62,000 naira minimum wage. Labour fault politicians. Jumbo pay. National Assembly gets bill after satellite. You can find that on page 2. So we have to wait till next week to be able to really ascertain for sure what will be the new minimum wage. And that's all on the Punch newspaper. But before we move further with our paper review, we would love to take a break at this moment. We know you have a lot to share, so you can do well by sharing that on our Facebook handle. And when we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Welcome back. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories where we are seeing that the deliberation for the new minimum wage will resume after the Salah break, as well as we're seeing other stories on the paper concerning the World Donor Day, talking about blood donation and then appreciating donors for the past 20 years of doing their best to make sure that they save lives. We also have other stories on the paper what Dangote is saying concerning encountering some mafias that are stopping them from reaching whatever they want to reach concerning, storage of petrol. So quite a number of stories on the paper we would love you to be part of, especially the issue of education, where we are saying that it seems that most proprietors are, shunning the curriculum that is meant for them to follow. They are following the British curriculum, and the Ministry of Education needs to do something about that. So quite a number of stories. So we would love you to talk about that. I still have Rachel with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily Sun newspaper.
The big story on the paper, minimum wage fight. We won't go below 250,000 naira. NLC TUC vows to put pressure on National Assembly over expected executive bill. Details can be found on page 6. Supreme Court reserved judgment in federal government suit seeking full local government autonomy. Governor Mba breaks 19-year jinx as NMCN approves internship indexing for ESUT and other schools of nursing. Nigeria records 65 confirmed cholera cases, 30 deaths in 2024. Troops kill terrorist kingpin Buhari Yadi, orders in Kaduna. Massive food adulteration going on in marketplaces. You can find details on page 26. This is a report from FCCPC. You will know that this is so bad when you see some of the groundnut oil, the smell, and even the palm oil. You wonder what was mixed with this palm oil. So yes, there's a lot of food adulteration going on. Sometimes you will buy gain and the sand is almost 50-50 with the grain that you bought, with whatever you bought, and then it's still adulteration because they are mixing this thing to have a more quantity of it. And okay, so it's really, really sad. So we also have to be careful with what we consume because we have opportunists that are wicked and will do something that could endanger people's life, because food poisoning is real. So let's be careful. If you know a good source, sometimes don't always go for cheap, just always go for quality. No matter how difficult it is, just try your best and go, even if it is small, but let it be quality, because in the end you can eat something that will end up being harmful to yourself and your family. You can find details on page 26. Alleged 80.2 billion naira fraud. Again, ex-governor Bello's arraignment stalls. Court fixes June 27 as new date. Police chief inspector shoots magistrate in open court. You can find details on page 8. Military arrests killers of 5 soldiers in Aba. 3 killed as farmers' herders clash in Niger. Security operatives take over town. Details can be found on page 4. We have a picture story where we can see from left to right Governor of Lagos State Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Chairman Dangote Group Alhaji Aliko Dangote, Deputy Prime Minister of the Bahamas Honorable Chester Cooper, and Minister for Grand Bahama Honorable Ginger Magzi during the opening of the 31st Afreximbank annual meeting and the 3rd Afri-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, that is the ACTIF 2024, at the Grand Hyatt Bahar Mar Nassau in Bahamas on Thursday. This happened yesterday, and that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
Right, let's take a look at the Metrics newspaper. NNPC Limited to withdraw suit against sale of ExxonMobil $1.28 billion asset to surplus. As well, we have Dangote drops the bombshell, says oil mafia tried to sabotage refinery project. Tinubu launched outgoing budget office DG. Ben Akibu Eze appoints Tanimu Yakubu as replacement. Africa airports rating, Lagos Abuja airport listed in the top 10. More detail found in the paper. And on the state of the nation, Edwin Clark's split fire reveals how Igbo's disunity, selfishness, and greed caused Peter Obi presidency. Accuses Tinubu of perpetrating injustice against Igbos. Demand immediate restructuring of Nigeria to ensure unity. Charges the president to apply political solution to Nnamdi Kanu's case. You can find that on page 2. Alleged 80 billion naira fraud. Bello absent as court adjourns arrangement to June 27. Federal government begins converting railway engines to CNG. Supreme Court reserve judgment in local government autonomy case soon. As well, here we are having a podcast saga where Nidu management caution Yvonne over defamatory posts. You can find that on page 14, and other artists and people who are involved concerning that. We still have the same picture story concerning the AAM and the Afri-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum that took place in the Bahamas, and that's all the Metrics newspaper.
On Daily Independent, rowdy session mass National Assembly probe of $4.451 billion NLNG Project 7. On World Cup, NFF to hire foreign technical advisor for Super Eagles. The big story, cholera outbreak, 30 die from 1,141 cases as disease spread to 96 local government areas in 30 states. first anniversary Senate lists achievements, passes 25 legislations, reaches 115 resolutions. Details can be found on page 7. Brace up for adjudication, CGN NGI administrator tax judges. AFCC counsel seek adjournment of Yahya Bello's case. Local foreign mafia tried sabotaging our $19 billion refinery. This is a report from Dangote. You can find details on page 29. Supreme Court reserves judgment on suit seeking LGA autonomy. Emirship tussle, no Dubar in Kano during Eid el-Kabir, police declare. Details can be found on page 6. Aviation Ministry in Delima over naming substantive NCAA DG. Suspended DG NCAA in limbo. This is coming from a source. Now Jomo still in acting capacity. Then we have Kenyamo will address gap statement from his aide. Tinubu's name Yar'Adua's former advisor Tanimu as DG Budget Office. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
On the Daily Times newspaper, troops destroy several IPOB. ESN CAM made several arrests, says Defense Headquarters. You can find detail in the paper. Tightening of monetary policy won't curb inflation, World Bank tells the CBN. So we need to know what will actually curb the inflation if tightening the monetary policy won't do the magic. More detail of that can be found on page 11. EFCC bungles arrangement of ex-governor Yahya Bello as court picks June 27 as the new date. Federal government pledges to upgrade correctional center coming from the Interior Minister. We look forward to see renovations taking place. And as well here, Clark to Tinubu, correct injustice against Indiebo, and then releases Nnamdi Kanu. Says it's time to restructure Nigeria, implement the 2014 National Conference report. Berates killing of security agents by civilians. Detail can be found in the paper. Here we have Supreme Court reserved judgment in federal government sued against autonomy for local governments. You can start reading in the paper. And we have a picture story, one of the flooded areas that happened in Lagos. We're seeing that they're trying to clear the water. So you have to be careful for those who live by the waterside as the flooding is becoming. More detail of this can be found in the paper, and that's on Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily News Hub, the big story, implement 2014 National Confab Report, reintegrate Igbo fully. Clark tells Tinubu, urges President to restructure Nigeria, release Nnamdi Kanu immediately. Mafia tried several times to sabotage $19 billion refinery, coming from Dangote. Senate passed 25 legislations, 115 resolutions within 1 year. This is a report from the Senate leader. Lagos records 50% GDP growth under my watch, Sanwo-Olu boast. 2024 ILO conference, Nigeria leads 187 countries with 289 delegates. Report NLC TUC president registered at workers delegates. Supreme Court reserves judgment in LG autonomy suit. On Ondo Guba race, Aiyedati Bola, 15 others make candidates final list. Over 1.5 million pilgrims ready for Hajj rite in Saudi Arabia. Police arrest suspects behind fake jam websites. On Eid el-Kabir, police ban Dubai activities in Kano as court confirms jurisdiction to hear Bayoro's rights suit. Still on the paper, minimum wage, federal government will only pay what it can afford, says President Tinubu as Labour kicks. 2025 AFCON qualifying draw set for July, and that's all the news on Daily News Hub.
On First News newspaper, Dangote exposes oil mafia sabotage attempt against the $19 billion refinery project. Supreme Court reserves judgment in federal government suit for local government autonomy. Tinubu to get draft bill proposing 8-region structure for Nigeria Friday. Pastor sentenced to life imprisonment for defiling a minor in Ekiti State. NCDC sound alarm as cholera outbreak claims 30 lives across Nigeria. Buhari marginalizing Igbos address injustice, Clark writes in Igbo, data found in the paper. The big story, military arrests over 100 suspects linked to soldiers killing in Abia State coming from the defense headquarters. Man sentenced in UK for removing condom without consent. Bayelsa Governor Dire called investment as Afri's Bank annual meeting. Court postponed Yahaya Bello arraignment in 80 billion naira fraud case to June 27, as appeal court notifies Bello's contempt suit against EFCC boss. We have the picture story where we can see the World Trade Organization Director General Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala celebrate her 70 years birthday with the World Trade Organization staff, directors, ambassadors at the World Trade Organization campus on the shores of Lake Geneva on Thursday. That was yesterday. And that's all the First News newspaper.
On New Telegraph, the big story, we can't win insecurity war without people's support, coming from the defense headquarters. Regrets Zamfara has no internal security platform, decries 16 security personnel killing in 13 days. Respect rules of engagement, COAS tells troops. Soldiers kill bandit leader Buhari Yadi, others terrorizing northwest Niger areas. You can find details on page 36 and 26. Value of e-payments rises to 92.8 trillion naira after 1 month decline. World Bank approves Nigeria's 2.25 billion naira loan request, the one that the president stated recently, and we can see that the World Bank have approved this loan. You can find details on page 7. Nigeria seeks partnership with World Trade Organization to foster economic growth. On local government autonomy, Supreme Court reserves judgment on federal government suit against state. NNPC Limited moves to withdraw suit opposing ExxonMobil's $1.28 billion asset divestment. Onondo Guba Ayidatiwa Ajayi, 15 others make INEC's final list. Still on the paper, another mining pit collapses in Niger. Tinubu replaces Akaveze with Yakubu as DG Budget Office. Confusion hit National Assembly probe of $4.45 billion NLLG Project 7. You can find details on page 4. Cholera outbreak, NCDC reports 30 deaths. Details can be found on page 4. On Democracy Day, Clark demands Nnamdi Kanu's release, seeks end to marginalization of Igbo. There is a study, sugary drinks linked to oral health risks. You can find details on page 26. Of course, we have cavities and all of that. So you might be mindful of how much sugary drinks you take or consume on a daily basis. And that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, Lagos GDP grew by 50% in 5 years under my administration, coming from Sanwo-Olu. Oyetola Project Ministry to achieve top 3 ranking on the PEPEC. World Bank gives approval for $2.25 billion loan for Nigeria. Tinubu to receive draft bill proposing regional government system today. Afenifere Chifta unveiled proposal of 8-region Nigeria interim boundaries. Coalition advocates new constitution in Nigeria's governance overhauled blueprints. Union proposes retaining 36 states as province with reduced powers. You can find more detail of that on page 4. NELFund to publish list of eligible institutions for the student loan scheme June 24th. And on settlement agreement, NNPC asks the court to discontinue lawsuit against mobile subsidiaries. Detail found on page 21. We have 2 picture stories. You can do well to look into that. And that's all on the Nigerian News Direct.
On the Nation newspaper, 774 councils can't afford to pay 62,000 naira wage, says chairman. Olakulehin inspects ready for use Olabadan Palace. Fashola asks Assembly to review Lagos tenancy law. Details can be found on page 6. World Bank OK's $2.25 billion support package for Tinubu's reforms. Resources will be used sustainably to achieve development goals and assurance from Edun. Details can be found on the front page and on page 2. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On the Voice of Liberty, our refinery has slashed diesel price by over 60% in Nigeria, coming from Dangote. On minimum wage, we will pay what we can, not what labor demands, coming from Tinubu. On hardship, adulterated foods flooding Nigerian market, federal government warn, says palm oil mixed with dye and lead. And this is what Rachel is saying. So we have to be careful of the source of where we buy most of these foods. And then we have Supreme Court reserved judgment in federal government suit seeking full local government autonomy. The Supreme Court has reserved the judgment in the suit filed for the federal government by the Attorney General of the Federation against states in relation to the dispute over the autonomy of Nigeria's 774 local government areas. From Kano State, police banned Salah to ban activities. Notorious terrorist Buhari Yadi, 35 others killed at Kaduna-Katsina border. Edwin Clark writes Tinubu demand 2014 CONFA report implementation. And on Democracy Day, North is now ready for restructuring. This is coming from the Liberty TV panel. You can look into that as well, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On Punch Sport Extra, the big story, Gernot Raw exclusive. The only disappointment for me was missing the 2022 World Cup with Nigeria. If they miss another one for such a football country with the best players in Africa, it will be a little bit shameful. My bittersweet Eagles memories. You can find details on page 6. Osimhen convinced he will join EPL club. Greatest footballer Mourinho picks Messi over CR7. Hosts begin fourth title chase against Scots. This is on the Euro 2024, and we have England-Serbia clash high risk, a statement from police. Morata laments fan abuse. 50k Albanian fans storm Germany. Fury back in gym for Usyk rematch. You can find details on page 2. Ashola Ice Olympics medal. Milan named Fonseca new coach. Al Nasser to pay £84 million for Casemiro. You can find details on page 5. Blues agree Lima move. Details can be found on page 4. Flamingos coach not taking chances against Liberia. Survival battle. Can Bielsa mar 3SC's continental dream? Cricket star Sunday releases 1,000 runs milestone. You can find details on page 2. And that's all the news on Punch Sport Extra.
Well, we hope we don't miss this World Cup again, Rachel. I think that is just what I'm just hoping for them. Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sally.
Thank you to our viewers, our support team. Thank you as well to the production team and every other person for making this program a success. We look forward again to doing this next week. Have a blessed weekend ahead.